So, so welcome everyone to a new section of our IPP seminar series. It's a pleasure for me to welcome today Pamela Pasian, a researcher at the Ca Foscari University of Venice and currently a visiting scholar at our institute. Pamela's work spans across multiple topics: care, health, welfare, international migration. She has participated in various international research projects on violence against women, migration, reproductive and oncological health, and she's currently involved in a Horizon project, the Let's Care project, in which the group COSEV of our institute is part of as well. But today she will present about a different topic. She will discuss about social innovation in refugee integration, the experience of the SIforREF project. So Pamela, the floor will be yours for 40 minutes approx, and then we will open the floor for the Q&A. And that's it. Without further ado, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Roberta. Thank you, everybody, for having me here today and for your presence. My speech will focus on the topic of social innovation, and in particular, social innovation in relation to refugee and asylum seekers integration. My reflections come from what emerged in a European project I was involved in, funded by the program Interreg Central Europe, and named SIforREF, Integrating Refugees in Society and in the Labor Market Through Social Innovation. The reflections generated from the project were also compiled in a special issue of the journal Innovation, the European Journal of Social Science Research. So, social innovation is an ambiguous expression, defined also as a buzzword and a contested concept. The concept of social innovation made its debut in the 70s within the field of urban and territorial development studies. In this context, it took on a meaning linked to collective action in response to emerging needs. Later on, in the 80s and in the 90s, a new meaning developed connected to the transformation of welfare. But it's from the 2000s that the reflection on social innovation flourished, moving beyond the academic sphere to enter political documents and debates and funding programs at various levels. Those who have ventured into an examination of the literature on social innovation, looking for a definition, have highlighted the absence of a shared one, given its multidisciplinarity and complexity. Nevertheless, the definition that, at least in Europe, seems prevalent is the one that consider social innovative those innovations that are social both in their ends and in their means, referring generally to new ideas, products, services, and models that meet social needs and create new social relationships or collaboration. This rather vague definition has been stretched in many different political directions. In neoliberal approaches, it tends to support social entrepreneurship in quasi-markets. In more progressive approaches, it aims at changing social relations and power asymmetries in satisfying social needs by empowering the most vulnerable groups. In this sense, it highlights also the importance of the underlying processes that kick off change allowing us to refer to a broader definition of vulnerability and need, which goes beyond mere economic disadvantages and consider also the mechanisms that produce social exclusion in various spheres of life that hinders people's full participation in society. Putting forward socially innovative initiatives implies to identify unmet social needs, and in doing this, two aspects are considered as crucial. One is the local dimension of social innovation, and the other is the role of civil society. As regards the former aspect, the local dimension is identified as a key entry point. Indeed, localized practices and local policies often help socially excluded and vulnerable individuals and social groups to satisfy basic needs, for which no adequate solutions seem to exist in available welfare policies or on the market. In relation to the latter aspect, social innovation adds new actors or redefines the role of existing actors, third sector organization or local governments. They introduce new instruments based on participation and put forward new goals. The joint effect of these two aspects is a process of subsidiarization that is characterized by a complex process of institutional reconfiguration on welfare state, leading to a more articulated welfare mix and multi-level governance arrangements. The social innovation literature on local and bottom-up dynamics entails manifold challenges for both social research and action. A first challenge is given by the risk of falling into the local trap, by assuming that the local scale is preferable to larger scales. The local trap can be avoided only by embracing a more comprehensive and relational approach on how social innovation moves between and across scales. This does not mean that the local scale does not play a relevant and special role, but it questions its uniqueness by disentangling the complex mix of multiple scales and multiple actors at the very basis of social innovative initiatives. A second challenge is given by the fragmentation of the multiple actors and scale involved in social innovative initiatives. These require an increasing coordination effort involving resources and institutional capacity to govern the welfare mix in order to avoid an unequal access and the tension between context-bound and particularism and universal right. Mainstreaming successful initiatives are a possible strategies. However, these attempts aimed at increasing the impact of socially innovative initiatives are indeed deemed to fail if they do not consider their context-bound character. A third challenge considered the need to unveil the attempts to avoid public responsibility by offloading it to the civil society, whose involvement in the provision of social services and resources have been often used to justify decreasing public commitment and to reduce the financial burden on public budgets. Social innovation should not become the Trojan horse of neoliberal attempts of dismantling the welfare state. A fourth challenge is to kick off institutional learning processes and to find enabling legal frameworks which allow socially innovative initiatives to unfold on the one side and to consolidate and upscale on the other side. A major difficulty in this process is given by the fact that the mechanism of representative democracy and citizenship rights might be inadequate to transfer insight from social innovation initiatives geared at vulnerable groups into policymaking. A fifth challenge is related to the transformative potential of socially innovative initiatives involving new participatory practices and bottom-link activities across scales in multi-level governance arrangements. Does participation involve the most vulnerable ones? How are governance arrangements involving civil society accountable and improve democracy? Are they improving equality or just reproducing power asymmetries in practice? These are some of the questions to keep in mind when analyzing social innovative practices. In general, social innovative initiatives that work best are relational. In other words, context-sensitive, and their innovativeness derives from being embedded in specific spatial and institutional context. The different underlying regulatory principles give rise to different institutional architectures, which constrain and enable social entrepreneurs, local government, and civil society organizations to develop, sustain, and spread socially innovative initiatives. Given this, we now move forward to social innovation for refugee integration in the EU. So, immigrant integration policies, including refugee integration, are an EU member state competence, meaning that national laws take precedence and the EU cannot regulate this issue through binding regulation or directive. However, since the Treaty of Amsterdam, migration and asylum issues have fallen within EU legal framework, thus paving the way for a soft governance on integration, with an emphasis on measures that seek to promote cooperation, coordination, and sharing of ideas and best practices. In 2011, the European Commission published a European agenda for the integration of third country nationals and a subsequent action plan for promoting the diffusion of policy ideas and creating a European integration network and a European integration forum for exchange between civil society and EU institutions. Another pillar of EU soft integration concerns financial support for integration measures through various funding schemes, including the Asylum, Migration and Integration Fund and the European Social Fund, for example. Since the 2010, the so-called civic integration term features integration policies in many EU countries. This approach consists in the formal obligation for immigrants to acquire the language of receiving countries, to become familiar with its political institution, histories, values, and norms, in order to obtain social benefits and or not to lose benefits or the residence status. While the civic integration term has created a kind of convergence in the integration policies of the EU states, the arrival of a significant number of refugees starting in 2015 and the so-called refugee crisis as a consequence of the war in Syria and the instability in the many countries of the global south has raised new challenges for integration. In particular, differences emerge more clearly between countries with a longer experience of welcoming refugees and countries which, in addition to having less experience, also found themselves with governments that were distrustful, if not hostile, toward asylum seekers. The relative novelty and unpreparedness of public actors have created fertile ground for the emergence of socially innovative practices, both promoted from below by civil society actors and by public actors at the local level. In this context, developed the project SIforREF, which had the goals to address the issue of medium or long-term integration of refugees, and enhancing or to launch refugee integration policies at the regional and local level in 5 involved cities: Vienna, Berlin, Ljubljana, Parma, and Bologna. In a scenario characterized by uncertainty, emergency logic, and growing anti-immigrant sentiments, social innovation seemed the most suitable approach to invest in, to explore specific methodologies, to design innovative practices, showing the advantage of the involvement of public actors together with civil society. Even if innovative practices has already arisen in many contexts, there was a lack of systematization and the need for the development of tools to evaluate those practices emerge and design new ones. The project took charge of this, developing methodologies focusing on the process. During the last decade, literature on social innovation metrics developed to evaluate the output. Nevertheless, it displayed a set of deficiencies. Firstly, these metrics obtained scant consensus among scholars concerning the reliability and robustness of their findings. This was primarily the consequence of disagreement on the definition itself of social innovation as a concept. Secondly, it's now widely acknowledged that the social innovation is context-dependent, cross-sectoral, cross-disciplinary, and cross-geographical. Adopting a one-size-fits-all approach may thus be neither feasible nor appropriate. So, instead of looking for specific indicators related to the outputs, the project focused on the process of social innovation, in other words, on the procedure for designing a social innovative governance system, arguing that the construction of social innovative governance is largely in itself the construction of social innovation. It's my fault? Yes, it's my fault. Okay. I thought it was, we were here. You see, did you see this slide? Okay. So about the methodology, we were there. So why some scholars claim the leading role of third sector organization in social innovation practices, tending to consider the intervention of public institutions, particularly at the national level, as an obstacle due to the bureaucratic rigidities, we believe of paramount importance that the public institutions promote and coordinate mixed networks of actors in order to achieve an effective and democratic accountability system. If innovation is not carried out by institutions, the risk of weakening the social dimension of welfare in favor of efficiency is real. The role of the state is fundamental also in promoting citizens' participation and community networking. So co-production has been identified as a driver of innovation in public services, especially as regards the implementation of social and welfare policies. So both state and non-state actors can provide significant knowledge and points of view to reach a not simplistic definition of the problems and subsequent actions. While civil society can count on close proximity to potential users and on a remarkable flexibility of actions, the public actor should maintain its role in regard to citizens, assuring quality of services equity, fairness, and access, in synthesis, full and equal citizenship. Given this, the methodology elaborated foresee three phases: a preparatory phases, an analytical phases, and a co-planning phases. This three-step method has been applied to the area of refugee integration policies in the 5 cities part of the project. During the preparatory phase, the project researchers interviewed key informants, analyzed policy sheets, database with statistics on refugees, on the labor market, on the presence of NGOs, etc. The construction of the interview, as well as the choice of the people most interesting to interview in each context, was the result of an intense discussion among the project partners. And the output from this step was a detailed analysis of the refugee reception programs in each context. The second phase mapped a number of recognized by key informants best practices already implemented in each city, and sought to grasp what worked in each context and which political, social, or territorial condition made the emergence of these practices possible. In order to achieve this result, project partners from civil society and from public authorities worked together on a template elaborating which dimension to consider. The goal of this step was not to transfer a practice from one context to another, but instead to understand the key features of best practices, as well as why they are more likely to work in a specific context. The third phase is the design phase, envisaged activation of the main actors involved in refugee integration in each of the cities part of the project. The group comprised at least 10 people and consisted of policymakers, practitioners, stakeholders, social workers, and of course, refugees themselves. These actors were invited to engage in recurrent rounds of discussion, supported by professional facilitators, in a setting similar to the one of deliberative democracy. This co-framing and co-designing activity produced two main outputs: the building of a tool to design and implement inclusive and innovative practices in the realm of refugees integration, and the piloting for about 6 months of this tool through the implementation of 7 pilot actions in the 5 cities involved. Pilots were designed according to the local challenges identified in the previous steps of the project, and their aim was to improve the labor market and or the social integration of refugees and asylum seekers. To give you an idea of one of these pilots implemented, I would like to show you this video about the pilot implemented in the city of Parma in Italy. Here the pilot action has 2 main goals: addressing a housing issue by providing refugees with 2 flats facilitated by the municipality, and establish a social activity where refugees took on the role of social caretakers for the neighborhood. Social caretakers, in Spanish, I think it should be portero social. In Italian is portiere sociale, portierato sociale. But now we will see. Maybe with the video it's more understandable. So the 4 refugees were trained to become social caretakers, lived in 2 apartments, in multicultural residential areas, and offered the co-inhabitants both practical help, taking care of sorted waste collection, helping people in need with their everyday tasks, etc., and social support, so conflict prevention and mediation, approaching the other foreign resident and foster the integration, etc. Besides reaching the goals, this pilot created proximity and fostered social cohesion, mitigating prejudice against refugees. Okay, I think I know. How can the video start? Help.
Al hacer clic, Shift F5. Shift F5. Shift en Windows es control. Sí. Sí. Ya, pero es que en vídeo. Pero no tiene enlace directo, ¿no?
Pero sí, o sea, en el ordenador todo funcionaba con enlace directo.
Y sabes...
Lo puedo encontrar
vale.
en YouTube.
Vale, pues
Lo busco aquí.
Vale, gracias.
No, perdón, YouTube. Necesito YouTube.
Vale, pon aquí YouTube. Ahí está.
Puedes entrar allí, ¿sí?
Vale.
Y este.
Sí. Wow.
Y con florituras, ¿no?
Está así.
Pues hacer de todo.
Lo tenemos que ver entero.
Aquí hay música.
El audio.
Mi chiamo Davide Fussato, vengo dalla Nigeria. Io mi chiamo Benida, la mamma di Mirade e la moglie di Ciccio. Lo chiamo Socorro. Vengo da Milano. Il comune di Parma ha messo a disposizione di queste persone 2 appartamenti in cui vivere e loro a loro volta restituiscono alla città e al quartiere attività di portinato sociale che appunto vanno a beneficio dell'intera collettività del quartiere. This place we are, I really like it. We are here to help those who are here with us, those who are here to stay around with us. With them, I was with them when they trained the community, I trained them to train the community, when they do many activities. Riteniamo che attraverso le attività di progetto si possono realizzare quelle occasioni di prossimità che generano effetti positivi per entrambe le parti. Da una parte i cittadini e la popolazione locale può mitigare il pregiudizio nei confronti dei rifugiati che spesso è alimentato anche da narrazioni mediatiche, può avere delle occasioni di prossimità e può godere di un supporto costante all'interno del quartiere. Dall'altra parte i rifugiati che hanno offerto uno spazio di domiciliarità che rappresenta la base per costruirsi una solida stabilità in questo nuovo contesto e viene anche data loro l'opportunità di
quartiere sono disponibili per aiutare, per fare volontari, per vettura, vagone, per pianazione, mobili, per giocare con Essiana, chiacchierare con Essiana, per conoscere tutte le persone del quartiere.
In questi anni Acer ha portato avanti una serie di iniziative che vanno sotto il cappello "Una casa non è solo quattro mura". Quello che cerchiamo di far capire e di valorizzare è non solo ovviamente tutto quello che riguarda gli aspetti manutentivi più legati agli edifici, ma cerchiamo di valorizzare come i nostri inquilini vivono all'interno dei loro edifici e più in generale all'interno del condominio. E anche se il progetto non è partito da molto, credo che sia decisamente tangibile tutti i benefici che sta già portando all'interno del condominio. Le persone si stanno integrando in maniera ottimale e per i condomini avere comunque un punto di riferimento è sempre una risorsa.
Con l'aiuto di questo progetto abbiamo amici e adesso aiutiamo insieme da poco. Lui ha trovato un lavoro tra poco che siamo qua per aiutare la famiglia, anche altro tempo per aiutare gli anziani che hanno bisogno. È una buona cosa che mi piace. Adesso abitiamo qua e siamo felici in questa casa. Il progetto pilota si sviluppa all'interno di quartiere Pablo, un quartiere che presenta molti aspetti critici, è un quartiere dove sono residenti tantissimi stranieri e richiedenti asilo, dove c'è un'alta presenza di anziani, dove si è assistito spesso a fenomeni di degrado e di delinquenza che spesso coinvolgono cittadini stranieri in situazioni di grave marginalità.
Cuando se denuncia un caso de abuso sexual hacia un niño o una niña, se inicia un...
Hanno cambiato qualcosa di tanto, e appunto la casa, per venire bene, e mangiato bene, preparato tutte cose, perché anche mi piace di aiutare qualcuno sempre, non avere nessuna mattina sono così naturalmente, sempre. Volevo aiutare alcune persone che hanno bisogno di essere.
Il processo di co-costruzione è ciò che ha caratterizzato non solo lo sviluppo del progetto pilota, ma tutto il progetto SIforREF, attraverso il confronto costante con una molteplicità di attori che ci sono andati ad individuare gli aspetti più importanti, le strategie più importanti per aumentare e favorire l'integrazione dei rifugiati. Questo ha rappresentato un paradigma di lavoro anche all'interno del progetto pilota e infatti c'è stata una grande sinergia non solo tra i rifugiati e gli abitanti di quartiere, ma anche con tutto quello che è il mondo del terzo settore, le realtà associative del quartiere, i consigli cittadini volontari e in generale tutte le varie i vari gruppi che operano all'interno di questo contesto. Il progetto mi hanno dato mano per spazio sociale, anche stanno organizzando eventi dove che dobbiamo fare alcune cucine, anche insegnare ad altri come si fa le cucine, anche la possibilità di fare anche dei torti e anche altri dolci. Per il progetto mi hanno migliorato come di conoscere altre persone qua, anche io vengo a come moderatrice del quartiere, ho conosciuto altre bimbe qua, abbiamo una relazione con gli studenti, come la donna che abita il sopra.
So the neighbors, since we came in the neighbors, they are very nice, they are good people. We live together, we live happily. They children together, we live together.
Il Comune di Parma crede fortemente e da sempre in un'idea di comunità inclusiva e nell'accoglienza, l'accoglienza delle persone rifugiate, richiedenti asilo e di tutti gli stranieri. Noi cerchiamo di portare avanti non solo un'idea di offerta di posti letto, ma
progetti di inclusione. Quindi il progetto di cooperazione sociale di Parma è un'occasione per sperimentare una buona prassi e che confronteremo con altre buone prassi delle altre città per vedere che cosa può funzionare meglio rispetto agli obiettivi. Gli obiettivi sono sempre duplici. Da una parte questi progetti e queste buone prassi aiutano l'inclusione e l'integrazione delle persone che accogliamo, dall'altro però c'è anche l'obiettivo di lavorare sulla comunità accogliente, sperimentare delle buone prassi che facciano emergere il valore e le potenzialità delle persone che accogliamo, sicuramente un ottimo messaggio anche per i cittadini e per la comunità che accogliamo.
No? Okay. Okay. So this was just to show you an example of how different actors can work together and co-produce an idea that can be translated into practice and foster integration and inclusion. To conclude, so the SIforREF project gave the opportunity to undergo a process where, as I was saying, different actors, policymakers, NGOs, refugees, stakeholders, practitioners, interacted together, where reflexivity had a specific space and time to develop, and where time for dialogue was not curtailed. Indeed, the setting provided by the project made possible a relational climate. We strongly believe that transforming co-creation approaches into a fully fledged decision-making process can be a path to follow for a new way of conceiving and producing social innovative governance, not only in the field of refugee integration, but also in other challenging fields. This requires a proactive role of public actors and institutional actors. This is fundamental. The methodology elaborated can be a useful tool for guiding these processes, but also scholars and practitioners in investing which features must be improved in order to enhance social innovative policies, and also for assessing if and to what extent civil society actors are actually involved in horizontal and cooperative relation with the public actors in order to deal better with emerging societal challenges. Thank you.
Thank